Yay, yay, yay. All right, all right. Gotta love Facebook Live. And give me a minute while it does what it does on my end. And we are live and in action. Hello, people.
Hello.
Hello. Yes, okay. So we are live on Facebook. I'm so excited. It's been a minute.
Woot. We're family strong conversationing it.
Yes, I'm loving it all. We're getting it back on track. And I'm so thankful for those of you who are like, okay, Michelle, what's up next and who's up next? And what a great time to present this conversation, because as many of you know, this is starting the month of holidays, of recognizing our relationships. And in particular, we have to kick it off with the queens of the world, of their kingdoms. Let me say that. Not be queens of the world, but queens of their kingdoms. And we're talking about all things mom. And, you know, I think oftentimes when we think about mothers, you know, we think about the love and the acceptance and the warmth. And what came to mind for me, Kelly, was I was thinking about some of the TV moms that I most admire. And my favorite TV mom was Phylicia Rashad.
Claire Huxtable.
Yes. Do you have a favorite TV mom, just out of curiosity?
Well, I mean, Claire Huxtable, it had to be.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah, she was like that perfect combination of love and warmth, understanding, but also no nonsense and don't you dare act out or get out of line, because she will lovingly, but
reel you back in.
That's
I love Tracy Ellis too. We got Blackish.
Absolutely. So we have to recognize now in this day and age, or I sound so old, it's like way back in the days, we had Phylicia Rashad, but yes, Tracy Ellis Ross. And in real life, I think a lot of people look to Michelle Obama as kind of that really epitome of the mom who is kind of has it all together, even though I'm sure in her world, most mothers do not think that they have it all together. It's kind of what we portray and put out into the world. But I think she represents an ideal of what a lot of us would like to do, not just as a mother, but as women, you know, in the world.
She's definitely my role model. I want to be Michelle when I grow up. I want to be Michelle and Michelle when I grow up.
Michelle O. Stick with Michelle O. Because I want to be Kelie K. So there it is. But then, you know, so we speak about the good moms, and then I think about the mothers who are kind of on the other end of the spectrum. And I watched the movie Bad Moms a while back, and it was hilarious because I think, you know, they hit it on the head. But when I think about some of the fictional bad moms, one of the moms that came to mind was the No More Wire Hangers mom. It's like, no more wire hangers, mommy dearest, right? She was just a little out there. And I think I was a bit traumatized. Yeah, just a little bit. And I think I was a little bit traumatized because growing up, we had wire hangers. And I'm like, uh-oh.
Do you have them now, Michelle?
No. Yeah, I despise wire hangers. It's just like they get tangled and everything else. But then the other one, and I don't know, did you ever see the movie Precious?
Of course, yes. Oh, yes. How could we forget that?
Yes. And so you really have the mom way off on the deep end, portrayed by the fabulous Monique. So that's right. So I know we have moms that run the gamut, but I wanted to have this conversation with you because so often when we talk about Mother's Day, of course, we're honoring the mothers in our life, whether we are a mom or we had a mom or we are mothering someone else, a family member or a friend or a little one in our lives, or a big one for that matter. But we also know that for some, this day can be a little complicated. You know, it can trigger or can arouse a wide range of emotions. And it can run the gamut. So for those moms, or for those people, it's not about flowers or breakfast in bed. You know, it could be about some other things that they're thinking of. Some may have experienced the death of their mom recently, or even if it was 10, 20 years ago, there's something about losing a mom or a mother figure that can really stick with us for the rest of our lives. Others may be estranged from their moms for something that could have been a really minor transgression, or it could have been something pretty major. And so we're just going to talk a little bit about that. And before I have you introduce yourself, I was going to read something from the book, Family Strong, 7 Gifts for a Lasting Legacy, about how relationships can be complicated.
Family Strong.
Yes, it's from the chapter about the gift of wellness. And in the book, I talk about emotional wellness. And as mentioned in the prior 2 chapters, most families, all families, have some form of dysfunction. And that source could be unresolved conflict, it could be trauma, abuse, or even undiagnosed or ignored mental illness. Millions of people have some form of emotional disorder they deal with silently, and conditions such as depression, anxiety, paranoia, and narcissism run rampant in families. But so often this behavior is excused, dismissed, or ignored. The impact, though, can be lasting and create turmoil within the family unit down through the generations. And so let's talk about some of this. So today I'm super excited to have on my friend, my guest, Kelie Kyser. I love it, KK. And we are going to talk. And well, let me say this. I forget how the conversation started, but we were talking one day, and the conversation turned to family dynamics and what happens when there's not such a great relationship with a mother or a mother-like figure. So before we get into that, Kelie, why don't you introduce yourself to the audience?
Well, first of all, you have to love the internet, because as we're talking, I'm like, I hope I'm not freezing, and I hope I stay unfrozen now.
Yes.
But I'm extremely happy to be here. Kelie Kyser, I'm a Denver native. Geez, what else can I say about myself? I have spent a significant amount of my career advocating for people with disabilities in the criminal justice system. Lots of people, I don't freely offer that, but that is something that like has been one of my greatest, I guess, like accomplishments in life. So, and I am a daughter and friend and just girlfriend and all of those things, and your friend and a reader. So
I love it. I love it. So yes, all those things and so much more. I mean, things that you haven't even touched the surface of, but we'll leave it there. But as I mentioned, we were having this conversation the other day, and we were just talking about relationships. And then something came up for you as it relates to mothers and motherhood. Can you talk a little bit more about that, specifically with your father?
Yeah. And it's that when you were talking about that passage that you read in your book, when I read your book, that resonated with me. And that's how we kind of came to the conversation about, I was just kind of talking about how my dad and his mother they had a very strained relationship. And so I witnessed that as a child growing up. And that's a hard thing, to, I don't know, I guess figure out how to accept. It was hard to watch them growing up, not getting along. And it was one of those things where I respected her, but it was difficult to love her, if that makes sense. And so, when you're a kid, all you want to do is fit in. And I just remember like everybody, I was close with my maternal, with my mother's mother. And so she was, you have cute names for your grandma, like your Nana or your granny and those types of things. But I just remember that it was always awkward when I would talk about my dad's mother, because that's what I called her. I mean, we just didn't have a close relationship. And it's not that I didn't love her, but I just felt like she, as a kid, you side with your parents. And I saw that they struggled. And so that just was it. So that was difficult. And I always think about that Mother's Day, just because I remember feeling a little sorry for him that was kind of his relationship.
Yeah. And I'm curious too. Well, first, because you mentioned you were a Denver native, very rare.
Mm-hmm. I know.
Yes, a little bit of a unicorn.
Yep.
But did your father's mom, did she live in Colorado also?
Mm-hmm.
Or did she live out of state?
Nope, she lived in Colorado.
Wow. Yeah.
So holidays were real fun.
It's just like,
that forced fun.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I'm curious now also, what did the 5-year-old or the 7-year-old or the 9-year-old Kelie say to her dad or to her mom? Hey, what's going on with this relationship? I want to know my other grandmother like I know my
Right.
Nana.
Right. You know, it's interesting that you should say that, because that's the other thing about children, right? They're so you adapt to everything. And I think, and I mean, I'll just speak culturally here, that I think, like, especially brown children, it's kind of like seen, not heard. So I don't think I ever thought to ask that. It just kind of was like I observed it, and I didn't really ask a whole lot of questions about it.
Yeah.
You know, but now that I'm older, I reflect back on some things and I understand things a little bit differently. But no, I didn't ask a whole lot of questions at the time.
So now that you're older and you can reflect back, do you have any sense of what may have created that rift within their relationship?
Absolutely. I mean, one thing, and this is, it breaks my heart, but I feel like, you know, especially as Black women, there's this thing where we have to be strong and tough. And I don't think, especially her generation, was supported or loved. And it's almost like she was raised to be this tough woman, and she had a son. And so there was the make your son tough kind of thing. And they didn't have the hugging, loving, nurturing relationship. And I think about that now. And, you know, it's hard to be upset about it, because I really feel like she was doing the mothering that she was shown.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
You can only we all do the best that we can with what we're given.
That's right. That's right. And it's a reminder too of that piece where I talk about how it can go down from generation to generation if not recognized, and a shift happens. And I wonder, for your dad, no, was he an only child?
No, he has a sister.
Okay.
Yeah.
And did you notice the same dynamics between your aunt and her mom? Okay.
It was a tough love kind of thing. And I mean, it's interesting because completely different, like my mother's family, you know, they're huggers, and it was polar opposite. Yeah. So it's one of those things where it trickles down. But again, I just believe that has a lot to do with how she was raised.
That's right. Right. Yeah. And, you know, thinking about mothers and sons, it can go one of two ways, where either, like you mentioned, mom is very much like, I got to raise him. He's got to be a man, you know, tough love. I can't show too much affection and the whole bit. And we know, as you mentioned, culturally, this was a survival tactic that needed to be put in place. And then on the other side, and perhaps now in more modern times, as mothers, we recognize, especially with our boys, that we need to be able to show love and to express that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The silver lining, though, I have to say in all of this is, so now fast forward, and she's like in her 90s, and my dad.
She's still alive.
She's still alive. Okay. And my dad. So now their relationship, it's changed. I mean, you know, they're not perfect, but it's certainly not as strained as it was. And I am happy to see that at least there's peace there now.
Yes. Oh, that is a blessing. And I mean, I know, and I want to say this too to everyone, you know, you hear the term mom, and I think sometimes people just think very linear, like, oh, the person above me, the person who gave birth to me. But in our conversation, in this context, we're looking at mothers in a much broader way, so that it could be a grandmother, it could be an aunt, or some other maternal figure in our lives. So that's helpful. And I think, well, we'll talk about lessons learned as when we begin to come to the end. But so we talked about dad's relationship, and then I know, let's kind of shift a little bit and talk about you personally. And yeah. We can shift to I'm every woman.
I know. I'm like, okay.
Yes. But I know, as part of that same conversation, we were talking about motherhood and what that means, and some of the challenges, and, as you put it, some of the pressures that women feel as it relates to motherhood. Talk some more about what you mean about that.
there's just, poor women, because I feel like, I don't mean it like poor women, like
But
poor
yes.
women, but there's just so much pressure, like across the board. And it comes so many different ways, right? Because there's a pressure, we were talking about the pressure to be a mother. But I mean, even if you just think about, if you get married and so if you're dating, then it's, when are you going to get married? And then you get married and it's, when are you going to have a child? And then it's, when are you going to have another child? So what we specifically were talking about is how, because I don't have any children, and I have felt a little bit less now because I'm older, but just always this pressure, because I almost felt a little bit guilty because I just never had that instinct, to that desire to want to be a mom. And it's not that I'm not a mother. I feel like I'm a very caring person, but just never felt the calling to be a mom.
Mm-hmm. And the pressure that you talk about, I'm thinking the pressure comes from a variety of sources. Where do you feel the pressure coming from? Mm-hmm.
You there?
Yeah, were you able to hear that? Yep. Can you hear me?
Uh-oh. Yes, I didn't hear the question. I'm back now.
Okay. So I was asking, you talk about the pressure, and I'm wondering, and I'm thinking the pressure is coming from a wide variety of places. Talk a little bit more about where you feel that pressure coming from.
The interesting thing is, I bet you and others would think that it would be my mom, right? But it never was. And I feel so fortunate that, first of all, that's like my best friend, but also there was never a pressure from her. In fact, what she told me was that she wanted me to know that being a mother, it didn't make me any more or any less of a woman. And I almost get tearful about that, because it was like, I needed that pass from her to face all the other pressure that I was getting. And so it was coming from just random people, to be honest with you. I remember when I was newly married, a woman was asking me about it, and she asked if I planned on having kids, and I said no, and she said, well, what's the point?
Oh.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. It's like, I'll just go this way now. Was this an older woman, or?
It was.
Yeah.
And a church friend once approached my mother and I and made a comment that she thought it was extremely selfish of me not to want to have children, because why wouldn't you? I mean, there didn't, and what I remember thinking was, thank God I wasn't trying. Like, you don't know what somebody's struggle is. There is a possibility that maybe I want to have a kid, and I didn't. But I just remember thinking, like, for her to go there and not even really know what was going on with me. Maybe I lost a child. Maybe I was really trying to have a child.
Yes. And I think that's what's missing sometimes in the conversation. There is this assumption, especially if you're in a relationship or if you're a certain age, that you need to have the next thing on the list, because there's a list.
Let's check that off.
Yeah. And we forget that there are women who may choose not to have children. There are women who are trying to have children. As you mentioned, there are women who have lost a child, and we need to be sensitive to all of that and recognize that we don't know, to your point, why someone has made the decision that they had. And guess what? It's none of our business.
It's nobody's business
but your own. Yes.
And I also remember thinking that when I heard the comment of that it was selfish, in my mind I thought, the amount of mental math, Michelle, that I did when I was even considering being a mom. I have such respect for mothers, and I realized the job. And I thought, I don't 100% know that I'm up to the task. So I think that's selfless for me to say that, maybe that's not a good idea for me.
Right. Maybe that's not the lane that I want to be in. That's not my strength. I have others. And bring a child into the world when you know that maybe I'm not the right person to do this, to take on this mothering task. Yeah.
Or if it's not 100%, like just, you know, in your heart that that's what you want to do.
Yeah, yeah. You know, it's so very interesting when we talk about the pressures, and, you know, a lot of moms would also say, oh, we feel the pressure too. And that's a whole nother conversation.
Right.
Yeah. But this is really about for those individuals who have made the conscious choice, or the choice has been somewhat made for them in this season of their life, that this is not what they're going to do. And for us to recognize that as, again, one of the elements of what the complexity of motherhood is all about. And I think you mentioned also that while you may not have physically brought a child into this world, there are people in your life that you have a mentoring or mothering relationship with. Do you want to say anything about that?
Sure. I mean, you know, like I mentioned earlier, I love to help people. And so, you know, I've been very fortunate in my life to have had opportunities where I feel like I am kind of I'm mother-like, I'm nurturing of some of the clients that I had when I was doing advocacy work. And certainly, I am the fun aunt to my girlfriend's children. And my boyfriend's child is my favorite person. Like, he's such a sweetheart. So yeah, I don't necessarily feel like I can give love in so many ways and have and mothering in so many ways.
Yes. Oh, thank you for that. I mean, we have to expand what we consider and what we look to when we talk about the term mothers. And you know, there was a quote that I read somewhere, and it said, God cannot be everywhere, and therefore he made mothers. And I would, again, look at mothers in that very broad context of the women, and not to leave out the guys, because there are some men who are mothering to, or had to be mothers to their children as well. So, yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yep. And then, you know, as we start to look to wrap this up, but I know that, and this is something I think we all can relate to when we talk about our moms. And you mentioned about the first time that you realized that your mom was an actual human being with feelings and emotions and wants and needs of her own. the thought. What did you mean by that?
I just, so I'm not anybody that knows me, I'm not very active on social media. I am guilty of that. But one time I shared this letter because it was hilarious. I went to camp. As a kid, I was in camp this one year, and I had a horrible experience, and I was writing my mom letters because I couldn't wait to tell her that basically I was running interception on a lie that she might have found out. Like, somebody was going to fib on me when we got home, and I wanted her to know. So I wrote her a letter, and I addressed it Mom. Yeah. And do you know it still made it? I mean, I addressed the letter Mom, and then I put her address on the bottom.
That is hilarious.
Because she didn't have a name. It was just
no. She was just Mom, and the postal person better recognize that
it's Mom.
Yes.
Yes, it made it. I can't believe that she got it. So she has it. So it's hilarious.
Oh gosh.
I bring that up to say that it has been one of my greatest joys in life to get to know her as a person. And now I think I told you this, I already respected mothers, but now I have a greater respect, because I realize she is this complex person, and she had challenges and all of the sacrifices that she made, and still did this awesome job. Even though, I mean, nobody has a perfect childhood. There's no perfect person.
Right.
But geez, she did a great job. I mean, I'm get a little almost emotional talking about it, but she's truly my best friend. And so that is cool that now I'm and she's a woman.
Yeah.
It's not just Mom. She's a person.
100% whole person who's, yes.
She had struggles, and she was unsure. And and she said one time that if she had not had me, she would want to know me.
Wow.
And I was like, check mark. That has got to be.
Wow. I like that.
We were somewhere one time and she said, if I hadn't had you, I would want to know you.
I think that is maybe one of the best compliments. I mean, there's so many, but one of the better compliments that a mom could give to her daughter or to her child for that matter. Yeah.
But I think that's what happens with moms, and I mean, I'll say daughters in this situation, but when you become an adult and you start relating to each other. So that was cool for her to say that.
Yes. Oh my goodness. And as I started to get a little swelled up and my eyes started to sweat a little bit, I started to think about.
I know, I'm like,
yeah, I know, right? But it reminds me, and I took the liberty, I can't sing, and nor will I even attempt to do it. There's a certain line in the sand, and I often cross it, but today I'm not going to do that. So I'm just going to read the words to it. And I think about the song from Celine Dion, Because You Loved Me. And some of the lyrics, you were my strength when I was weak. You were my voice when I couldn't speak. You were my eyes when I couldn't see. You saw the best there was in me. You lifted me up when I couldn't reach. You gave me faith because you believed. I'm everything I am because you loved me.
Because you loved me. Yep.
Mm-mm.
Oh, so you are trying to make people cry.
Oh, 100%. Yes.
I almost made it. I'm like, you are not going to make me cry.
I almost got a little choked up too, but I think, and it comes to the point of, regardless if you feel that you can speak this way about the person in your life who mothered you or who was that mother figure to you, it's my hope and prayer for everyone. I know that you had that relationship. I know that your father is hoping to get that relationship, and I hope at the end he will be able to say those words as well. And that's my prayer for everyone listening too, because like you mentioned, these women who raised us, or who we are raising, I hope people recognize that we're all just human. They're human. Everyone has mistakes. No one is perfect. If so, we'd be walking on water. And until I see you do that, you are not perfect in my eyes. And we need to extend some grace and some mercy and forgiveness.
Lots of grace.
Yes. Before I have you close, I was just going to read something kind of related to that note about the power or the idea of forgiveness. And it really comes down to, perhaps you didn't grow up in the most loving of households. As tempting as it may be to replicate what you experienced, I challenge you to try something new. It must first start with forgiveness and letting go of any perceived or actual wrongs in the past. And what greatest gift, and it's been said, let me think, did I write down this quote? But I know so many of you have heard it. In fact, I have it in here somewhere. So while I have you wrap up, I'm gonna look for that quote. But tell me, Kelie, the last question I'm gonna ask you, and you were talking about, because you did read the book, and you were saying, Michelle, the gift of your story really speaks to me. Talk a little bit about why you said that.
Well, and we were specifically, because I was relating it to mothers. And what I was saying is, in your book, you were saying how people in your family, when you're a kid and people start telling stories, you kind of roll your eyes because here we go again, and I don't want to hear that story. But I was saying that I wished that, specifically when my granny, my mother's mother, was living, I wish I would have asked her questions. We had all this time together, and as she got older, I just, we talked, but I just wish that I would have asked her some tough questions, like, really, what I had to lose.
Yeah.
And she had, I don't know, she was such a dynamic woman, and I just wish that I would have asked her more questions and known more about her story, because she is the reason that I am who I am. I mean, she made my mother, and then there's me, and I just identify with her so much that I wish that I would have known more. So the gift of your story is important.
Mhm.
And I know that what you and I were talking about is how sometimes you feel like maybe you're not that significant, or there's
Oh,
not much that you can say that will change things, but you never know what you might say that might give somebody strength or lift somebody up, or they can identify and not feel alone.
that's right.
Yeah,
That
so
is, yeah,
important.
that's right. That's right.
Mhm.
And, as people, I think we discount what we bring to the table. Everyone has that, a small measure of imposter syndrome and who am I to say and who's going to care and who's going to listen. But I know that I know that I know that your story is intertwined with my story, and my story is intertwined with that person's story. And hearing the other person's journey helps us to recognize that we are not in it alone, that we have someone else that we can talk to who has either been there or perhaps maybe going there. And this
Right.
word may serve as a small or a big source of encouragement for them. So let us not discount our voice at all. It is very much needed. Your voice is needed, Kelie, my voice, and everyone out
Yep.
there.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, to end this, I know you talked about perhaps, wishing that you had been able to capture a little bit more of your grandmother's story. But is there any additional advice that you would like to either give or that you wish you had received regarding this whole complex topic of motherhood and mothering?
Um, okay, so see, I know because this is top of mind for me, and that is this is just where my mind goes, but it's Mental Health Awareness Month,
There
right?
it is.
It's also Mother's Day, but mental health awareness. And so I guess I just the advice that I would give to people is to not beat yourself up about things and not to feel ashamed or embarrassed about whatever your situation is. If you don't get along with your mom, you can find mothering from different people. Perhaps maybe it doesn't look cookie cutter, but that doesn't make it it's still okay. I guess that's what I would say. So just to give ourselves grace. That's my advice to people.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
that's really beautiful, because I'm thinking we do hold up these almost impossible images of what we think this should be or what we think that should be. And as you mentioned, to let that go
Mm-hmm.
and just accept and embrace what you have. And if you're in a position now to do something different for someone else, whether it's your own child or someone else's, then model that if it wasn't
Right.
modeled for you. But don't beat yourself up because of what you didn't have or bemoan that. Just know it was there for a reason, and you learn from that, and then you
Yep.
move on.
Yep.
Mhm.
What
Yeah.
you said. Yeah.
Well, I'm just repeating what you said. I love it. I love it. Kelie, thank you so much for coming
Thank
on. Yes,
you.
this was rich in so many ways. And again, my prayer is that whoever watches this, if it's one nugget that you hear, maybe it's not a nugget for you, but a nugget for somebody else, that you recognize that everyone's journey is different, and just accept it for what it is, and know that you can always make a shift if a shift is necessary. So we love our moms. We're wishing all of our mothers a happy
You
Mother's
can
Day.
remix your story.
Yes. Oh,
Yes.
yes. Now, see, you almost caught
I'm
me.
sorry, I just messed up the ending.
No. I love it, because then I was like, oh yeah.
You can remix your story.
Yes. So I need say no more, but to thank you for coming on and reminding people that yes, you can remix your story. Thank you so much, Kelie.
Thank you,
And to
Michelle.
all the moms out there, we're wishing you a happy Mother's Day.
Happy
And
Mom's Day.
yes, and regardless of anything that's going on, each and every one of you are loved. So just know that. Until the next time, we will sign off. But if you haven't received your copy of Family Strong, what are you waiting for?
Read the book. It's really good. Mother's Day is coming. Good Mother's Day. Great Mother's Day gift.
Great Mother's Day gift for the moms, the grandmas, the auntie, whomever in your life. Thank you for the plug, Kelie, and thank you for my own shameless plug. You can go to familylegacystrong.com to pick up the book. So until the next time, Kelie and I will sign off, and we'll think about some other interesting conversations we'll have to bring to the table. Take care, everybody. All the best.